Over the past 8 months, I have spent more waking hours inside my home than I would have ever imagined. Before the pandemic, the primary function of my home was as a place to sleep and, on occasion, eat. In an unexpected move, thanks universe, my home became 1,800 square feet that had the opportunity to serve as more than just a place to sleep. I got to eat every single meal of every single day at home. I got to pretend my home was totally the same as the movie theaters, concert venues, bars, and restaurants I would frequent. I got to exercise in my basement where I would pretend to kick an imaginary punching bag. The most significant function of my home, however, was acting as an office for both myself and my husband. This obviously wasn't only the case for me. As lockdowns and mandatory stay-at-home orders swept the country, this became the norm for many. If you search up the hashtag work from home on Instagram, you will see some drool-worthy content such as these warm, comforting neutrals, verdant foliage bringing some life into the frame, a simple but clever use of a small space, and a spot under the stairs that would make Harry Potter jealous. In fact, I even posted my own attempt at capturing the perfect work from home setup. We admire these photos because our eyes are drawn to the organized, clutter-free spaces where it looks like some serious work can happen. But why are we attracted to this? A 2011 study conducted by the Princeton Neuroscience Institute discovered that having multiple visual stimuli present within range of one's view will result in those stimuli competing for neural representation. At this exact moment, everything that you can see in front of you and peripherally is taking up space in your brain. More than that, it's competing for your attention and distracting you from focusing solely on this talk. In short, we need to declutter our space to declutter our mind. Before we go any further, I have to come clean with you. My Instagram photo is not capturing reality. In fact, I threw everything that was on my desk onto the couch that's outside of the frame when I took that picture. I'm going to show you what my desk actually looks like. Some key highlights in this picture are the screwdriver and the electrical box that's partially hidden by my water bottle that really just needs to be reinstalled. My son's Halloween costume that should have been put away days ago, the pile of mail that needs to be sorted, and what I can only assume is a box from Amazon that probably needs to be recycled. Even just looking at this picture of my messy desk heightens my anxiety. It turns out it's not just me. In a 2010 research study conducted by the University of California, Los Angeles, researchers went on guided home tours with participants, noting the words they used to describe their space. They also measured levels of the stress hormone cortisol. They determined that participants who described their homes as messy, unorganized, trashy, unfinished, or cluttered had increased feelings of depression over the course of the day. Participants who used descriptors like relaxed, calm, comforting, and peaceful had decreased depressed mood over the day. If this Princeton study is to be believed, this clutter on my desk made it incredibly hard for me to focus on writing this talk, for example. But I still got it done. Sort of. Okay, admission number 2. We have another office space set up in our guest bedroom with zero clutter. And I had to take my laptop to that office space and close the door in order to focus. I am a cautionary tale, so believe that Princeton study. If your reality looks like mine, then what do we do next? Option 1, make some raw cookie dough, find a comfy couch, and binge the Netflix show Tidying Up with Marie Kondo or Get Organized with the Home Edit, or both, and consume the cookie dough in absolute misery that your bookcase is not organized in a rainbow by Clea and Joanna. Option 2, declutter your workspace. If you want to go with option 1, you can tune out now and start mixing up that cookie dough. But if you're even remotely curious about option 2, hear me out. Before we continue, it is important to distinguish between clutter and cleanliness. I absolutely hate cleaning. That's what my husband is for. But I love decluttering. Cleaning is the act of maintaining a healthy and safe environment. Clutter doesn't necessarily need to be cleaned. It's just disorganized stuff. Clutter can become a health hazard when it reaches the extreme of hoarding. But hoarding is not the topic of this talk. There's a whole TV series about it, and you could check your local listings for details. We are focused on decluttering, and I'm going to share with you some steps that you can take to reduce the chaos in your physical space and, in turn, your mind. For a moment, I want you to imagine 2 sorting bins to get us started on this journey. One of them is labeled obligations, and one of them is labeled priorities. An obligation is something you have to get done, usually for someone else. I have to pack my son's bag for daycare. I have to respond to several emails for work. I have to complete my online vehicle renewal for the DMV. A priority is something you want to get done. I want to try these new fall sugar cookie cutters that I bought. I want to read the stack of books piling up on my nightstand. And I want to do some shopping for some new fall clothes. Recognizing your obligations and priorities requires introspection on your part. 1, to determine if something is an obligation, a priority, or maybe both. And 2, to determine what needs to be done first. As I shared examples with you, I was very black and white, but that's not always the case, and that is okay. In an ideal world, our obligations and priorities would always align, but that's just not reality. So, using your new sorting process, identify your obligations and your priorities, make a to-do list, and order those tasks by necessity and immediacy. Motivation breeds motivation. So checking off even the smallest of tasks will help you be more productive. Now comes the fun part. With your obligations and priorities clearly defined, begin to organize your physical workspace. If there are items that represent one of your priorities or obligations, keep them in your space. Physically organize them so the most pressing items are the most visible. As we learned earlier, for better or worse, we focus on the things that we can see. Chances are you have some things in your workspace that do not serve a purpose or represent a task. So let's revisit my desk, shall we? Looking at it, you'll see the dirty plate next to my keyboard from a snack that I had. Probably just needs to go to the kitchen sink. The Amazon box, tomorrow's recycling day, so it needs to go in the bin. You need to remove anything that doesn't serve a purpose or represent a task. By organizing the clutter, you can more readily focus on the things that you need to get done. For example, the paperwork sitting behind my keyboard is something that has to actually be filled out and returned in the mail. By keeping it in my direct line of sight and freeing up the space around it, I'll get to it sooner than I would otherwise. As you begin to free up physical space and mental space, you'll probably start experiencing some of the research-backed benefits of decluttering. Psychology Today touts that by maintaining an organized, clutter-free home, you will find more comfort in your home environment, make healthier choices about eating, be less stressed, have higher levels of mental processing, and be able to better focus. At this point, you might be feeling inspired to get started on your decluttering journey. In order to be successful, I have two key pieces of advice. One, just start small. And two, give yourself grace. My first piece of advice is a little bit of a twofer. Just start and start small. Choose one space to get organized. In a lot of situations, people say it has to get worse before it gets better. And I would say that decluttering is one of those situations. If you start too many decluttering projects at once, it starts to get really overwhelming. And if you're a go big or go home type, then you better be prepared to throw a lot of things away. I go through my home and do a major purge every few months where I order a dumpster from the city and throw away all sorts of stuff. It's actually become a running joke between me and my sister now, where she'll text me a photo of some space in her home that she's trying to organize, and I just send back a GIF of a dumpster fire. There's something very freeing about getting rid of stuff you don't want or need. The most important thing to do is give yourself grace. Instagram is not real life. Pinterest is not real life. If you are a perfectionist or a type A personality, you might not want to get started until you can go to the Container Store and buy enough storage bins to organize every single drawer, every single cabinet, every single shelf in your home. Don't do that to yourself. Listen to my first piece of advice. Just start small and be satisfied with the progress you make. Shift your mindset to be motivated by progress instead of by perceived perfection. Now, I'm going to wrap this up. Because I've done such a great job with this talk, I have two things that I need to immediately go and do. I'm going to just start small and declutter my desk, and then I'm going to go ahead and share that messy picture of my desk to my Instagram. And by giving myself some grace, I will hopefully inspire others to do the same.